How does a trucker hat become the symbol of an entire era, only to crash in one of the most controversial downfalls fashion has ever seen? In the early 2000s, Von Dutch was everywhere. Paris Hilton, Ashton Kutcher, Britney Spears. The paparazzi didn't just capture celebrities. They captured a logo that turned into an empire overnight. For a moment, that hat was the crown of Y2K culture. But fame this loud never lasts. Behind the hype was a brand poisoned from the start. Bitter ownership feuds, counterfeit chaos, and the disturbing legacy of the man whose name was plastered across every piece of merchandise. What looked like effortless celebrity cool was already spiraling into greed, betrayal, and scandal. You might remember the hat, but the truth behind Von Dutch is stranger, darker, and far more controversial than anyone realized. So the real question is, how did it all fall apart so fast? The name Von Dutch didn't come from a fashion designer. It came from Kenneth Howard, a California pinstriper and mechanic whose nickname was Von Dutch. He made his reputation in the 1950s painting flames and eyeballs onto hot rods and motorcycles, and his flying eyeball became an icon of the custom culture movement. For decades, Howard was a cult figure in garage culture, not someone you'd ever expect to become a fashion brand. But there was a darker side. A private letter was discovered, one that revealed views so extreme they would later cast a shadow over everything the brand tried to build. At the time, almost no one outside of car culture circles paid attention. But years later, that letter would come back and damage the brand forever. By the late 1990s, the Von Dutch name wasn't attached to cars anymore. It had become a business opportunity. A Los Angeles art collector named Ed Boswell claimed rights to Howard's work and began putting the logo onto patches and clothing. Soon, he linked up with Michael Cassell, a businessman with big ambitions, and Bobby Vaughn, a surf and skate personality with his own connections. What started as a garage-born subculture was suddenly being pushed into fashion, almost by accident. The DNA of the brand was unstable from the start. 3 men, each with different motives, fighting for control over a name borrowed from a man whose reputation was already complicated. Add in the late 1990s Los Angeles scene, where streetwear, skate, and celebrity culture were colliding, and you had the perfect storm for something that could blow up in spectacular fashion. Von Dutch wasn't launched like Ralph Lauren or Calvin Klein, with a single designer vision. It was launched like a hustle. And that would shape everything that came next. Because what happened next was pure acceleration. One moment, Von Dutch was a scrappy brand stitched together by hustlers. The next, it was everywhere. The breakthrough wasn't strategy or design genius, it was visibility. Tracy Mills, a well-connected figure in LA's nightlife and music scene, began handing Von Dutch gear to the people tabloids couldn't stop photographing. Paris Hilton turned the brand into her unofficial uniform, wearing Von Dutch trucker hats and tanks on red carpets, at nightclubs, and in the opening season of The Simple Life. Ashton Kutcher wore the hats on Punk'd, where every episode doubled as free advertising. Britney Spears, Gwen Stefani, Justin Timberlake, Dennis Rodman, they all took their turn in the logo. Each paparazzi shot was a campaign, and each campaign was free. For celebrities, it wasn't about loyalty to the brand. It was about being seen first in something that looked different. The trucker hat, once a low-cost item picked up in gas stations, was suddenly a luxury piece. In Von Dutch stores, hats sold out instantly. On resale markets, they went for over $100. By 2003, the company was making tens of millions of dollars annually. For a brand built on chaos, the growth was staggering, but the speed of the rise was also the seed of the problem. Von Dutch wasn't grounded in heritage or craft. It was grounded in hype. And hype, once unleashed, is nearly impossible to control. And if hype was the fuel, boutiques like Fred Segal and Melrose were the launchpad. This was where stylists first picked up the brand, pushing it from garage grit into fashion currency. Behind the scenes, French designer Christian Audigier joined the team and leaned into the moment, adding rhinestones, flared denim, and over-the-top graphics. His aesthetic matched Y2K excess perfectly. And celebrities couldn't get enough. That combination, underground roots, tabloid exposure, and Audigier's flair, sent Von Dutch into overdrive. But it also set up the next stage. Because once everyone was wearing it, the backlash wasn't far behind. At first, the visibility was intoxicating, but fashion is ruthless, and the same overexposure that made Von Dutch a global phenomenon also made it disposable. Within just a couple of years, the brand went from exclusive celebrity uniform to mall staple. The hats were everywhere: suburban teens, gas stations, cheap knockoffs flooding flea markets. What had once looked rebellious now looked corny. Paris Hilton herself admitted she cleared her closet of Von Dutch after realizing it had become too obvious. Oversaturation was one problem, but inside the company, a deeper chaos was unfolding. The founders, Michael Cassell, Bobby Vaughn, and investor-turned-CEO Tony Sørensen, were locked in bitter disputes. Cassell claimed creative vision, Vaughn demanded recognition and control, while Sørensen pushed for expansion at any cost. Allegations of fraud, betrayal, and intimidation swirled around them, with lawsuits stacking up almost as quickly as the sales. Meanwhile, counterfeiting exploded. By 2004, Von Dutch was reported as one of the most copied brands in the world, second only to Louis Vuitton. Flea markets and street vendors flooded cities with fakes, further eroding whatever exclusivity the brand had left. In the background, French designer Christian Audigier leaned even harder into rhinestones, graphic denim, and loud logos. For a moment, it kept sales high. But it also accelerated the crash. What had once been a cult item now felt like caricature. The DNA of the brand was cracking under the pressure of greed and chaos. Von Dutch was still making money, but its foundation was starting to collapse. And the real scandal, the one that would prove fatal, hadn't even hit yet. The scandal that finally broke Von Dutch came not from a bad collection or a failed celebrity endorsement, but from the past. In 2004, a private letter written years earlier by the original Von Dutch resurfaced publicly. In it, he expressed racist and anti-Semitic views, even aligning himself with Nazi ideology. What had once been a dark secret whispered about in car circles was now impossible to ignore, resurfacing at the worst possible time. The timing could not have been worse. The brand was already wobbling from overexposure, but this revelation gave critics something much heavier to seize on. Overnight, Von Dutch wasn't just tacky, it was toxic. Retailers backed away, stylists stopped pulling the clothes, and celebrities who had once worn the hats religiously were suddenly desperate to distance themselves. It was an early form of cancel culture, before social media even had the power to amplify it further. Meanwhile, the press piled on. What had once been the must-have logo of Y2K excess was now ridiculed as Von Douche. The same tabloids that had turned trucker hats into gold now mocked them as symbols of bad taste. To make matters worse, the counterfeit flood showed no sign of slowing. With flea markets and discount shops full of fake Von Dutch hats, the brand's identity became impossible to control. Inside the company, things were no better. Michael Cassell was eventually pushed out, Tony Sørensen kept chasing aggressive growth, and Bobby Vaughn's life spiraled into violence. By 2005, he was arrested for murder after a nightclub shooting, only to later be acquitted on grounds of self-defense. The chaos behind the scenes matched the chaos in the market. Von Dutch burned itself out in record time, from red carpet crown to bargain bin punchline. Most assumed the story was over. But was it really the end? Or just the setup for its most unexpected comeback? For most of the late 2000s and 2010s, Von Dutch lived in a strange limbo. In the US, the brand was effectively dead. The trucker hat had gone from celebrity crown to clearance rack joke, and its association with scandal left little room for a clean reboot. But overseas, especially in France, Von Dutch never fully disappeared. Licensing agreements kept small collections alive, and for a brief time, the brand even tried to reposition itself as luxury. There were $600 puffer jackets, $800 cowhide bags, and runway shows in Paris that attempted to erase the memory of Ashton Kutcher in a mesh-back cap. These efforts never gained traction in America, but they kept the logo in circulation. Not iconic, not influential, just alive enough for nostalgia to one day do its work. That day came in the late 2010s, when Gen Z discovered Von Dutch through thrift stores and resale platforms. For them, the brand wasn't weighed down by tabloid history. It was a curiosity, a relic of an era they'd never lived through. On Depop and Grailed, vintage trucker hats began selling again, not because they were aspirational, but because they were absurd. Worn with baby tees, pleated skirts, and platform boots, the hats functioned as ironic camp, a playful wink to the chaos of the early 2000s. In the same way Juicy Couture, tracksuits, and Ed Hardy tees were reclaimed as kitsch, Von Dutch became part of a new wave of Y2K revival. TikTok supercharged the comeback. Outfit transitions, brat girl edits, and nostalgia-core mood boards brought Von Dutch back into Gen Z feeds daily. What had once been tabloid trash was now visual shorthand for Y2K cool. The more ironic the styling, the more it spread, turning an old logo into algorithm gold. The revival wasn't just grassroots. In 2021, Hulu released The Curse of Von Dutch, a brand to die for, a docuseries that chronicled the betrayals, lawsuits, and scandals behind the company. Instead of burying the brand once and for all, the documentary reframed it as fashion's wildest cautionary tale. Murder cases, fraud, celebrity excess, it was reality TV dressed up as history, and it reignited public fascination. A generation too young to remember Britney Spears in a Von Dutch trucker hat suddenly knew the brand as the subject of true crime storytelling. Then came the cultural reset. In 2024, Charli XCX released her single Von Dutch, turning the brand into a bratty, unapologetic anthem. The timing was perfect. TikTok had already turned Von Dutch into a meme and an aesthetic, and Charli's music video pushed it over the edge. Overnight, the logo that once symbolized Hollywood excess became a shorthand for Gen Z rebellion. No one was buying into Von Dutch as a luxury label. They were buying into it as an attitude. By 2025, the company itself embraced this irony. Instead of chasing department store placements or trying to be serious fashion again, it leaned into limited drops, influencer collaborations, and nostalgia-driven collections. The logo became the product, a badge of chaotic survival, marketed with full awareness of the scandal-ridden past. It wasn't polished, and it wasn't subtle. But that was exactly the point. Von Dutch today is not Ralph Lauren or Gucci. It's not even trying to be. What it offers is something stranger, proof that in fashion, notoriety can be as powerful as prestige. Its second life isn't about design or heritage, but about survival. Messy, controversial, and ironic. For a brand born in chaos, that may be the most fitting legacy of all. But what do you think? Does Von Dutch's revival show how easily fashion can recycle even its most controversial moments? Or should some brands be left in the past? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.